Okay, you're live.
All right, here we are again, live with the Jive. This is a show that I'm excited about. We've been talking about doing this show with these folks for a while. And to get these guys on here, any conversation in my career that I've had with Mr. Joe Palmer, I guess all haven't gone somewhere. Well, they've gone somewhere, just maybe not where we wanted to go. But so our guest tonight, as always, I'm joined with Chief Kip from Columbia Fire Department. But special guest tonight, Joe Palmer and Jamie Helms. So they're at the reins at the association office, great leaders in the fire service, and probably one of the most recognizable people in the South Carolina Fire Service. And we have Joe Palmer, so great deal all the way around. So I'll turn it over, Chief Kip, if you want to. We've been doing this for a while. I think we've been at it for almost a year. We've had several shows, different series, but guys might be tuning on for the first time to hear us. Well, we've got Chief Kip, if you want to kind of introduce yourself and tell them where you're from, and then we'll work into the guest.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Christopher Kip, and I work at Columbia Fire Department. This is where I started 26 years ago as a volunteer and worked up through the ranks. Now an assistant chief I have that honor. I'm also currently the chair of the officer section of the association, and in talking with that group, one thing we wanted to do is, well, the foundation of the group is to support the leadership of the state fire service. And in talking, we decided to do that. An important part is through building community. We have a lot of material on the website, different messages and documents about leadership and management, but we thought a unique thing to do would be able to have this show where we could bring leaders from the state, the fire service leaders from the state together and talk about the issues, the challenges, the insights that the leaders of the state have about management, the leadership of our fire departments and our members. So as always, it's an honor to be here, and especially with our guests, Joe Palmer and Jamie Helms, and of course you will.
Well, and I appreciate that, and to let everybody know that, this is really Chief Kip's brainchild. We did a kind of a segment at the Fire Officer Candidate School or Academy, and we just rolled that into a podcast. So Rick Dunn, Chief Kip, their brainchild, I'm just along for the ride. So I appreciate y'all having me.
Hey, Will, one note on that. At the Fire Rescue Conference this summer, we're hoping to have a live session.
Absolutely.
Right? You, me, and hopefully we'll have a big conference room. We can bring a whole lot of people together. Be a real neat time to meet other leaders in the state and talk about the things that challenge us and bring us inspiration every day.
Yeah, I think that would be great to have an audience there to give us feedback real time. And as I would love to have several different leaders come in, because this is the conference where they're all at, and I'd like the opportunity to get several.
Yeah, that'd be good.
All right, Jamie, you're on, babe.
Well, I'm Jamie Helms. I've just recently retired from Columbia as the professional service assistant chief. Been in the fire service for right at 35 years, a little over 35 years, I guess now, but recently retired and left, and was fortunate enough to be able to work for the association as the new deputy director. So I'm kind of starting out as a probationary employee again, but learning a lot on the backside of what we do every day at the state, and how great our staff is, and a lot of great things that we're doing to move us forward as a fire service across South Carolina. And I appreciate being brought on here. Hopefully I can add a little bit of something to the conversation tonight.
Absolutely, and we appreciate you being here, Jamie. All right, so my guy, Mr. Joe Palmer. There's a short list of people that I guess there's a long list that were influential in my career, but there's a short list of those guys that I put at the top. And Joe Palmer, you are definitely one of those guys. And it is always a pleasure to spend time with you and talk leadership, talk fire service, because we both share that passion. So I'm gonna turn it to you so you can introduce yourself to the one person who may not know you.
Sure, that's not the case. Thank you. And see, now you start that kind of junk and it makes me want to start crying right off the bat. So you don't do it again. I'm Joe Palmer. I have had the pleasure of being in the fire service of the state since 1985 and have had the pleasure of being the executive director of the association now 3 different times. And so the association is a green organization. They believe in recycling, and thank goodness because they keep allowing me to be recycled and come back. And I'm incredibly appreciative of that. Tonight, I'm joining you. I'm sitting in Newberry Fire Department tonight, part of my hometown, and where I was fire chief for a number of years. And I appreciate the folks here letting me take over their training room and part of their station tonight to do this. And I'm just happy to be here and be with you for a conversation. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, so you're right there in Newberry at the fire station. Did Andrew bring any coffee? Nothing like that?
My wife is a regular patron of his goods. As a matter of fact, she has a standing order, so I smell that coffee every morning, and so I'm good on coffee. I don't drink it, so I get my dose of it every morning. And thank Andrew for making her happy. That's all good.
Apothecary coffee, right?
That sounds right. And I'm not a coffee connoisseur. I don't do coffee.
Well,
I smell it. That's about it.
Yeah, he's one of our lead sponsors, so I wanted to get that in.
Andrew's a great guy, and it must be a good product because my wife's a coffee snob and she loves it. So I mean, I think it must be good stuff.
All right. So in today's program, the first section of it, we're going to talk about servant leadership. And if you hadn't tuned in or for some reason have not watched the 4 video series that Joe put out, which is kind of funny that we think about it now, and you mentioned green and recycled. That's something that we wanted to capture because you had left us and retired and we're going to the farm, right? And it was like, okay, we can't let Joe get away without having him put something down, something we can archive and go back to give back to the membership and leader and future leaders. So Rick goes out and you'll do a great series, and then you come back, and then you leave and come back. So we just won't let you go. You've tried a bunch, but we keep coming back.
I got to go further into the country to hide, I guess. That's what I got to do.
Yeah, you can't tell us where you're going because we're going to show up. Right. We're going to show up. But I'm going to tell you, from day one, when that first came out, I thought Rick did a great job on the production side of it. I love the way it was put together because, and if it wasn't, then it wasn't intentional, then it just happened to be serendipity, but it was put together simple, plain spoken. The first one is you're on the farm, and I think it kind of relates to a lot of people. So one thing that I want to get into before I even get into servant leadership is your presentation, your demeanor, your I guess your cadence when you talk. Where does that come from?
Friendship. I'm confident that everybody on this program with us, and I know that the 4 of us, we can sit down and have a conversation anytime. And I think that no matter whether you're in front of 1,000 people or it's just one-on-one, you're just having a conversation, and you don't put yourself in a place where you're talking about something you don't know anything about. It's just me and you and a group of friends sitting around talking. And I think that that's just relaxing, forgiving, because I'm not a great speaker, but people around you, when you assume that, hey, this is just friends having conversation, that they can be a little more forgiving of what your characteristics may or may not be. And so just like you and I sitting around talking, it's really no different. It's the same thing. And okay, you may be standing at a podium, you may be standing leaning against a tractor or a fence post or something, but it's just a conversation between friends, and it's real life. It's not something that has to be or needs to be scripted. It's our experience.
Now, and that getting up to talk in front of a group of people, whether it be 20 people or 1,000 people, a lot of people struggle with that.
Oh yeah.
And it's tough and a lot of anxiety. I mean, the first time that you have to stand up to ask the members of the association to like you to run for office, it's tough. I mean, it's a lot of nerves when you don't think you should have them, but you got them. But you always come off like it's easy.
I don't know that it's easy because I think about it a lot. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I wake up and think about those kind of things or whatever. So I don't know that it's easy. But again, it doesn't have to be uncomfortable. I trying to think of an audience or a time that I've spoke to somebody that really it just freaked me out. And probably smaller groups to me are tougher than big groups. Numbers aren't the problem. When you're one-on-one with somebody, you got to be genuine. You can't hide. You're not going to flower question and answer is going to happen. So those are the real times. And if you want to be nervous when it's just you and an individual and you got to get on down to it. Just when there's 1,000 people in the room, hey, I'm talking to friends and they can throw tomatoes, but that's about the worst that can happen.
Well, and I bring this up because I know the inability to speak in front of a group stops, it puts a ceiling on where guys can go in their career. So guys could see that even the guys that you look at, they look extremely confident, they have reservations too. They just overcome it. And I think because you are a very humble man, no doubt about it, anybody knows you knows that's the truth. But when you get up in front of a group, you have to know that you have something worth saying. And that's where your confidence kind of comes from. You got to have that confidence that what I'm saying is, one, it's the truth. I'm not bullshitting you. And it's worth you hearing. And if you believe that, I think it makes it easier.
I don't know that I could be a good salesperson because I don't know that I would believe enough in the product of an automobile or a vacuum cleaner. I've been silly, just whatever the thing is. But I believe in this. I mean, this is all I've ever done, and this service, this profession, this is a calling for me. And I've just been blessed to be around a lot of good people and just listen and this is easy. I don't know that I'm really good at it, but I mean, it's genuine because you love something. And when you love something, your heart's in it and you can just talk from your heart. It really doesn't have to be a script or a program. And yes, it is extremely difficult for a lot of people to do. It's very nerve wracking. And I don't know that there's a secret to it. Practice. I mean, you hear that all the time. You just got to get out there and you just got to do it. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you get. I just come at it from a different approach, is that most people that I know that I'm talking to know me and just know my limitations and know that I'm just, there's nothing special. We're just gonna have a conversation.
I'm gonna
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Will. Oh, well, I'll argue that there is something very different. And you said the word, and it's listening. And you are a very good listener. I remember even the first conversation you and I had, who knows when, that's when I walked away, that's how I realized that he didn't have any reason to listen to what I was saying, but he listened like he really cared. And I think there is actually a magic recipe, and that is a key ingredient, because when we listen, then people are going to want to listen to what we say. And I would argue that that is part of who you are, part of the leadership model that you show.
Everybody is important. It's not, I don't know. It's not about rank. It's not about where you come from, volunteer paid. It doesn't matter. Everybody's important. Everybody's got a story. Everybody's got an experience. And if you just care about them and you just, again, it goes back to that conversation, and you and I can sit and have a conversation, and what you've got to say is important. And if I listen enough to you, chances are I'm going to learn something, because you got to where you are because of passion or because of education experience that I didn't have. So hopefully if I'm observant enough that maybe I can pick something up from you and rely on you to help me get to where I need to go and improve. And again, it's just a conversation of caring. And I joke when he was talking about, making me cry, but there's this connection, and you have a connection with somebody and you care about them. And it's just genuine caring that I think that anybody can have, and that I do for people that I work with and in the fire service. I just great people.
But I think it's a real lesson for all of us. That is something that we should all become better at.
Well, for any future leaders that want to be leaders, this is a behavior you can model. And what I love about Joe is that he really feels like he can learn from anybody out there, whether it be a brand new firefighter, a chief that's been in it forever. he feels like he can learn from. Something else I'll tell you about Joe, because I worked behind the curtain for a long time at the conference. I think I did 3 years in a row, is that when he goes out and speaks, he doesn't go out there with a script. So that's what I wanted to know. Is it, Joe, do you give speeches or do you give talks?
Yeah, you have conversations, you give talks. I'll write notes when I do. I'll write notes to keep me on track, because what starts happening in my mind, I'll think of something when I'm standing there and I'll start down a rabbit hole. I have to have notes in front of me to keep me on task. But in my mind, if it's you invite me to come and I'm coming to talk, I'll spend time telling the story in my mind, so that when I just get in front of you, I'm telling the story again. And if I've got a piece of paper there, it's to make sure that I don't start down a pathway that maybe I didn't intend to go, or to keep me on track. But you just want to have a conversation. You just want to talk.
Yeah. So that's just one thing I wanted to cover before we get into actually the meat of your program, because I think it is a gift that you have, the ability to speak in front of a group, and not just in front of a group, just the ability to speak to anyone. And I think that's a direct correlation to whether you're running an engine company, whether you're running a shift, the ability to communicate with others. You got to have that. And no matter what their cultural background or anything going on, to be able to have conversations. And that could be one-on-one or it could be 1-on-1,000, but I think that's an important trait to have, and something that people can work on. I mean, everybody isn't just gifted that talent, but you can work on it. You can get better at it. Like Chief Kip said, listening, that's something that some people have to really tell themselves to do, but they can do it. So now what I want to transition to, servant leadership, is in your program, you talk about motivation. And I want to get your input on motivation, because you talk about internal motivation and we're not talking external, more of an internal. I want to get your take on it. And then I want to get Chief Helms' take on it, because he's going to have a different perspective than you have.
Will, do you love what you do?
Absolutely.
Why do you love what you do? I mean, what drives you? You got a shirt on there, Isaiah 6:8. Okay, who shall I send? Okay, and why do you want to be sent? And
because I want to make it. Who's running this interview? Right?
You want to be sent, and there's this somewhere down inside. Day one, you decide you want to sign up for this profession. You want to be a firefighter. There's got to be something in there that motivates you, that, hey, send me, that I want to be part of something, that I have a desire, that I have a motivation. And if it's just simply a job, okay, I just want to go, I got to make a paycheck and this is easy, it fits around my life and schedule, you can find that motivation. But more times than not, people that I cross paths with, and certainly people on this call, are people that have some kind of drive and motivation. Now, it's different. Everybody's different. Everybody's got a different basis from where they pull it. And it may start out 1,000 different places. Everybody's got a story how they got into this and who brought them into this. But somewhere in there was this little fire, this little spark that's kept you there. And even people that transition, okay, I started out with this department and I went over here after 5 or 10 years. Okay, why'd you do that? There had to be a motivation. There had to be a spark, something you wanted to be a part of, something that you wanted to improve yourself with. And people are genuinely good. Now, there are some people that just have crazy motivation and just fundamentally, or may not be the best people in the world, but for the most part, anybody you talk and meet to has got something in their heart or in their soul that, if you can find it, if you're a company officer, you got 3 or 4 guys on shift, or whatever the case may be, you can find what that thing is with people. Listening, Chris, we were talking about caring, just there's a story there. There's a motivation there, something that's going to spark them, that if you can tap into, if you can just grab a hold of, that it turns it loose. And that may be, okay, maybe it's a thing or a part of the job that you do. I want to be an engineer. I don't want to be a nozzle guy all the time. I don't know what it is. Whatever motivates you, if I can listen to you enough and find out what that is, man, we're going to have a good time. We're going to have a good time, because I don't want to limit you. I want to find what that spark is. I want to find what that thing is. And I just want to turn it on. I just want to say, hey, go. And how can I ride with you? Because it's not going to be about me having all the energy all the time. If I can find that thing that sparks you, I'm just going to grab your coattail and take a ride, and don't tell you where we're going to go, but probably then we're going to have more fun. And I know that it's a serious occupation, dangerous, people get hurt. I get it. But if it's fun, if you're smiling, then you're just going to move places that you never thought you could. And that may be a person that works in an office environment, it may be a personal engine, truck company, whatever your role is. You just got that spark, you got that motivation. I just want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of your energy, because there are going to be days that I don't have that energy. And if I can grab a hold of you, then it makes me excited, to watch people and transition. Now, y'all been talking a lot about me. Let's talk about Jamie Helms for a second. It's been a spark for me to watch the past couple of weeks, the energy and the excitement, enthusiasm he brings. And that excites me. That gets me pumped up, because I can ride his coattail for a little while. I mean, I just grab a hold of what he's got going on in his energy. And that's fun to watch the Rick Dunns or the Brooke Dennises of the world do what they do and the magic they do. That's fun stuff. I better hush. I'm capitalizing too much.
Okay. I'd like to know from you kind of, your internal motivation from 35 years ago to what brought you kind of in, what motivated you there, what kept you going, and then the new opportunities.
Well, honestly, I was floundering when at 18. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I got an opportunity by happenstance to talk to an assistant chief at Columbia. Really, I just wanted to find out about the job, but I think I call it divine intervention opened up a door for me. And it fell in my lap. And Rick could tell you, Rick Dunn could tell you, Chris could probably tell you, back in those days, we might have 700-800 applications in a waiting list for 2-3 years. And I didn't even put an application in until I made division chief, because of just the timing of things and how it happened. But I was driven by, sports teamwork type of concept. And I remember the assistant chief, said, "Hey, why you want to be a firefighter?" And my exact answer is, quote, "I guess I want to help people." And that was all he asked me. So I fell into it. And honestly, I was there till I turned 21. I was going to be a cop with the city of Columbia. That's what I wanted to do. And I was fortunate to get paired up with a lot of great people that saw value in me, and they supported that, and they pushed me along. I could call name after name after name, but the bug bit, and this is where I wanted to be. It was a disciplined environment. And when I say discipline, I don't mean we put paper on you. I mean, everybody was proud to wear the uniform a certain way. Everybody was proud of what we did. And that just resonated with me. And I fell into it. As I moved up, it became area of influence kind of mentality. The higher you go, the more you could influence that same, or push down that same type of influence to younger people that you had pushed down to you at 18 years old. And I guess that's just been my thing the whole time. The more we can do to help people, the more we could be out there doing things, the more we bring to the table. But more importantly, the people working under me, not that I had anything to do with their career other than I was their engineer, their officer, whatever. I probably taught them a lot of wrong things not to do, but when you see where those people are at today, and you sit back and you say, okay, hey, I did something that I didn't screw them up bad enough that they didn't become fire service leaders. And I think that area of influence to me is so important. I had people ask me, why would you give up the opportunity to be the president, run the chairs of the association, to be the deputy director? And I'm like, it's area of influence. That run of the chairs, even though that's critical to our organization, to me, it felt like it was a short-term type of thing. And this is an opportunity for it to be a longer, opportunity to just influence where we go as a state and just have an impact. And hopefully it's going to be a positive impact. But I think it's, I think Joe said something a minute ago about why did you get into it? I think even on our worst day, we all would sit back and say it's still the greatest profession, the greatest career, the greatest opportunity that anyone could ever have to be a firefighter or to be involved in the fire service. And even on our bad days, and Chris and I can tell you, he would come in my office, and that was our opportunity to vent back and forth. But even on the worst day, it's still the best place in the world to be, is sitting at the fire department and doing what we were called to do. So I don't even know if I'm answering your question. I probably am just rambling around, but I think it's so critical for our younger officers and our younger battalion chiefs and officers and fire chiefs and some smaller departments, larger departments, to understand just how big your area of influence is, and what the responsibility of it, but yet also the beauty of having that ability to impact so many people on so many different levels.
So I think it's great if you have somebody around you that can motivate you, and that's needed. I don't think anybody survives unless they have that motivation deep in. And Chief, if I want to ask you kind of a same line but different train here. When that flame in your career over time gets dampened down a little bit, what did you do in your career to kind of reset that and remotivate, refire up, and recharge and go get it?
Were you asking me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's a good question. And I was thinking about all the conversations that Jamie and I did have in his office or mine or whatever. We talked about motivation probably every other day, if not every day. And because it was often, a complaint that we hear from the floor of the guys are low morale and there's no motivation and we got to fix it. And Joe, what you were saying, I think, is really profound, and it's something I believe too, that every single one of us is a firefighter instead of something else because of some inner fire. And I guess the problem is sometimes that fire becomes just a shadow itself and an ember, but I really believe it's still there. And so Chief Vinay, I'll try to answer your question in a minute, but what I was thinking about was, all of us as leaders, and I call a leader anybody who's firefighter, lowest firefighter. Once somebody goes to that firefighter with a question or need, that firefighter is a leader. So all of us, what can we do to remove all the stuff that covers up that flame in the men and women who work for us? How do we identify what that stuff is, and how do we help them remove it or help them cast it aside so that ember can get the oxygen it needs and come back into flame? But Chief Vinay, so to answer your question, and I've been thinking this a lot. I have a lot of images in my mind through my career of some of the great moments and some of the real difficult moments, but there's 2 or 3 that I routinely come back to when I'm feeling really down, and one is, well, I believe we're all here to help people, and that is, we have the unique opportunity and skill to put out fires. But one of the most inspiring moments in my whole career was when I was a firefighter riding on the back of Engine 24, and we had a guy floating in who I happened to admire a lot. And we pulled up to our logistics, and it was on a hill, and the captain said, "Guys, go get this and this," and jumped off the truck and walked down logistics. And I looked around, my partner went there. And on the way down, I had walked past a woman who was in a wheelchair trying to roll herself up the hill. And then I looked back and I saw my partner wheeling her up the hill. And I thought, and I realized it was like a thunder strike, oh, that's why we're here. And that's the moment that I lean on all the time, and I've leaned on my whole career. And I believe all of us, I think one of the keys to getting rid of all the dross and stuff covering out the ember is to help our people remember why they came, or what fulfills them, why they're here.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to, you don't know what you don't know. So as a firefighter, you think your tough days or your bad days or your things that are affecting your morale are big deals, right? Because you don't know what you don't know. The more you go up the chain, the higher you get up, the more frequent water's douse on your flank. You know, it's hard to stay motivated the higher you get, because a lot of times, depends on your position in your department, the only news you get is bad news. So what I have to do is just always remember the purpose and the mission. If I can focus on the purpose, then I'm motivated. I'm good. And so whenever I feel like these knuckleheads ain't never gonna get it right, you know, it's, you know, we try to do this and the guys just won't do it right. I just have to sit down, take some time and say, okay, this is our purpose. This is what we're here for. And once I remind myself of that, then the flame lights back up. But it'll get you if you let it.
And how do we inspire those individuals? Because I've heard that morale thing a lot before from a lot of different venues, a lot of different groups. How do we remind them that you got to get out of the rut that you're in, the situation that you're in, the daily routine that you're in, and think about that lady in the wheelchair on that hill? Because there's your motivation. That's what gets you out of that rut. If all we're doing is we're waiting on the next alarm and thinking about that, and this is happening or this isn't happening, or someone is oppressing our ability to be able to respond or fight, or because rules, policy, procedure, whatever the case may be, get out of that and think about the lady rolling up the hill in the wheelchair. And if you can do that.
You talk about it in your series there, that, and you might even touch on a little bit tonight, that whether it's the engine company, whether it's a shift, whether it's a department, whether it's a state fire service, you have to know it's not about you. What we do is not about you. There's nothing that I do is about me. If it ever is, we got problems. So I think if we can just keep that mindset in place, is that it's not about me. It's about what we're providing and who we're providing it to. And as long as we don't ever lose that, we're going to be all right. The moment you do and get selfish, we got problems.
And
so that leads right into Joe attitude.
And that caring is about the person, the man or woman, either side of those individuals that may work with you or for you. And you, to your point, the higher up the organizational chart, if you will, that you get, it becomes more and more difficult to be able to tap into something that's beside you, that you can remind you that there has got to be a fundamental mission of caring here that we've got with people. There's got to be a fundamental community. The lady in the wheelchair, I'm going to use that again, Chris, for 1,000 times yet, because that's it. That's the answer. It's not about what happens inside the brick and mortar of a station sometimes, because that's just not the case. It's bigger than that. It's our community. And we are the representatives. We are the soldiers. We're the force that represents something that's really good here, that really stands. And I'm not overselling this thing. When a fire truck rolls up, people expect something. And it's not just the squirt water capacity, it's the carrying capacity to be able to help somebody. And if we can focus on that as a delivery model and what motivates us, then you can't be stopped. You cannot be stopped.
Something else, Joe, to build on that, and from one of your messages, talking about the little things, made me think, because you talk about how the little things are so important, and there are opportunities to do the little things every day. There's not fires every day, thank goodness, but there every day there's opportunities to help or to make a difference in some way. And it kind of reminded me, it's the reverse of what I heard of the in New York City. It's at one point a mayor came in and said, to attack crime, he wanted the police officers to take care of the little things. Like if they found a window cracked, they wanted to address that too. And he believed that taking care of those little things would eventually take care of the big criminals. And it's kind of the reverse, the small things, like you say, picking up trash in front of the station as you walk in. That small act is actually a step away from self and towards service, even in that small act. And it's through those that we train ourselves to be open to finding those opportunities all the time.
I had the good fortune of being part of a conversation of a group of peers the other day, and the conversation was about salvage overhaul and maybe the fact that a lot of folks have gotten away from that. And here, my takeaway from that was not the tactic of salvage and overhaul. It was the theory and the heart of it. Because it's real easy and real fun and real cool to roll up real fast, drag hose, squirt water, get back on truck, go back to power. And there is no doubt that there's an adrenaline to that, but it leaves out the equation of who you're going to and do you care about the people you're going to, and that ties into the salvage and overhaul. I mean, are you caring about your individuals? Maybe it's not a fire, maybe whatever the thing is, medical calls are covering us all up. It's a compassion that has to overarch everything, and finding satisfaction in that compassion brings morale with it. And can you tie all of those things together, to your point, Will, about getting out of where you are and just realizing there's a bigger picture here of that compassion? And I think that's just so important to instill in people. If I'm a company officer, I've got to I want to drill you. We're going to drill, we're going to train, we're going to be relentless in being the best that we can be in our situation, wherever it is. But there's some component of compassion that I've got to model also. And it's the little things. It is what can I do for the individual I'm interacting with as a customer or a peer or whatever the case may be, that I can pick up on and find satisfaction of that morale boost, that adrenaline shock that comes just helping somebody.
Yeah, Joe. So that reminds me, when you start talking about salvage and overhaul, when Steve Klein came in our department, we were a completely different department. And I'm not going to say where we were at, but as far as competency and all that, what I will say is the first fire I think that he wanted to, as the fire chief, we had a kitchen fire, and he gone in there, did a good job fighting fire, pulled ceilings, and it's all over the floor, all over the kitchen table. And he walks in, says, "All right, boys, brooms and clean it out of here." That's the first time we'd ever heard that. We just walk away. I mean, that was, and still to this day, when we have a fire, all of that is cleaned out of the house. It's just part of what we do now.
I would even take it a step further, Will. When I was a division chief, and me and my battalion was sitting out in front of a house one night, and we were doing the same thing. Get all that out of there. We want to make sure it's all tidied up, good to go. But the way we went about doing it gave a negative look to our citizen or to the owner of the home, that we didn't care really about it. We just wanted to get out of there so we can move on. And he and I started talking, and we started trying to talk to our officers about, hey, almost treat it like you're protecting it when you take it out, lay it out on the ground. And I know sometimes it's hard to do, but, you find a family Bible or pictures, don't just sling them out the window. Let's bring them out and lay them down. And I think that when we dive deep into what we do and we think of things in that manner, we're truly the fire service at that point. We're a service. We're there to take care of you. And I think that, we used to joke that the property probably looks better after we're done with it at a fire than it did before we got there. But taking that extra mile, I think hopefully most people will understand kind of what Chris's concept is. It's the lady in the wheelchair. It's going over and above what a typical, fight the fire, load the hose, go back in service kind of mentality. And we have lost a lot of that in some cases. And I think that as we bring some of those things, those types of things back, I do think it instills that discipline and pride of what your department stands for as a whole, versus just being great at fighting fire or great at doing rescue calls or that kind of thing. I think it's really critical that we again, back to our younger officers around the kitchen table, in the battalion meetings, kind of preaching that concept. The little things you do a lot of times mean more than the big thing of putting the fire out, if that makes sense.
Well, I think there's a lot of guys that sit in the firehouse that when they get called out, it's a hassle. It's okay. Yeah, I want to fight the fire and that's what I want to do. But anything after that, it's kind of a hassle to me, right? I'll give you just another example of, and I'm not, I don't want to act like this is the Will Benet Ladies Island show, but I want people listening to kind of take this mindset and take it back home and try it out to see how people start looking at your department. We have a car wreck the other day. The people were from New York, right? They were coming down. They were going to stay a month in on the island. They have a wreck, car's totaled. Chief Klein sent the fire marshal with the couple all the way to Enterprise Car Rental to make sure that they were taken care of. You know, it's not like we said, okay, we're out. We're in it until the end. And that's how we look at it. You know, we're going to take care of you until you can kind of suffice on your own. So just going that extra mile, those little things that, you know, Chief Kip talked about.
But I'll start a pot. I'm going to make some people mad at me when I say this, and that's okay.
Do it.
I love people in emergency response community, first responders. We're all in this together. I get it. But think about some terms. Words are important. There's the police force and the fire service.
Wow.
Are you forcing somebody something, or are you serving? And so now you join the fire service, okay? And your definition of the word that describes your whole occupation is service. Maybe we might want to think about that a little bit when we get frustrated because we're not running fire calls. And that's the thing we get hyped up on because whatever. Okay, good. I like red lights and siren too. I wouldn't have done this and lost my hearing, but we're in the fire service.
That's really profound in a single word.
You know, and your title of your first episode or video is servant leader. And so, yes, not only are we in service to the citizens who, in my case, pay my salary, but we are also in service to the people that serve with us. You know, it's my responsibility to serve them. You know, assistant chief, it ain't their job to serve me. I serve them.
And a good, effective leader is constantly concerned about the development of that and that service to everybody around him. And everybody works with them. And everybody wants to be fire chief until you realize the weight of the fact that I'm concerned about everybody on that org chart. And I don't care whether you just came on this job or whether you've been here 30 years. I love you and I want to see you succeed just the same. And the weight of that, if I take my job sincerely, is profound, because it's not make believe, it's sincere. I mean, it just, you really care about people and you really care about the people around you. And with that sincerity comes a burden and a load, and it's exponential as you grow the more bugles on the collar, just the way it happens.
It is a burden and load, but it's also the key to fulfillment, or can be.
It's an honor. It's an honor, Chief. It's an honor to be able to do that for you. And I don't take that honor lightly. And you have placed that trust and allowed me to do that for you. And the load is, we always talk about it. You got your back. Okay. How I got your back is that I'm honored to be able to have that level of concern and that level of organizational compassion that needs to be there to take care of you. And that's an honor for me to do that.
Michael Dozier sent us a comment. He said, a servant's heart is not just for leadership. I think he means for the leaders. We need it at the core of every single one of our members. We should love the folks in our communities regardless of who they are. And we show that love by serving them. It kind of ties right in with what you're saying.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt. And you know, he said something there at the end, for all our right? Because there are places that you may go that citizens are treated different. It was something that I've noticed in my own organization years ago, and you know, Chief had a lot of heartache with it. Is we go to an $8 million home, right? We're laying tarps out, trying not to track dirt in, and we're fighting fire, right? And we're trying to really take care of this home. But we act like we don't care when it's a single wide mobile home, just wrecking shit off the walls and, you know, doing all kind of things. The reality is that $8 million home, they got insurance, and they're probably gonna go. They're gonna lock up or board up and go stay at their second home they have on Free Pilot. Those folks in that single wide, if they can, they're gonna stay there tonight. So it kind of refocused us on how we treat people, and what I see that seemed to be okay was our migrant workers, that it was okay to treat them different. You know, I think that we've, in our organization for, the last 20 years, we've done a great job of recognizing black and white and trying to treat equal there. But there was definitely a difference in our immigrant workers from Mexico or Guatemala or wherever they're from. So that's something we had to address as well, treating everybody equally and fairly. And I think we're always working on that.
We do a really good job, and we spend a lot of time on teaching tactics. We do a lot of fire schools and a lot of training, extrication issues, on and on and on and on. How do we teach, or how do we instill? We're at in recruit school is a chapter on compassion about service. And the crowd goes silent.
Yeah. And the deal is, it's not in recruit school. It's not in any manual. So it's up to us.
Starts in the hiring process. I mean, and I've said this before, and y'all get tired of hearing me say this, but I want to hire somebody that's smiling. I want to hire somebody that's got a good attitude from day one, before you even start, before you pin a badge, before you put on a uniform, anything. I want to hire an individual that's got a good heart and a good attitude to begin with, because I can teach you all the tactics. It's more difficult to make you a great person. I can model that. I can mentor you. We can talk about things. I can show you through my actions how you want to be, but boy, it's a whole lot easier if I hire somebody with a good heart to begin with.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think you have to look at the values that the person brings to the table. I think that if if your core values is a sense of community, and you truly believe in it as a department, I think you have to focus on that when you're bringing that individual in for interviews. That should be some of the core parts of your question. We talk about it all the time, and in the fire service, especially here in South Carolina, I think we train people to an outstanding level. I know in our recruit school, when they come out of recruit school, their skill sets are so strong. If they don't have that core value or that sense of community, when they come in, they're not going to probably get that. And if you miss on that, and we miss plenty of times on it, and sometimes we hit the home run, but if you miss on that, you're more than likely not going to change that person as far as their values. Your values are set by the time you're probably 11 or 12 years old, maybe even earlier than that now. But if you miss on that, then I think you're focused on the lady in the wheelchair going up or pushing her up the hill becomes less and less and less. And I think it's critical, as company officers, especially to or have the right people in that position, because they're the ones that spend the most time with people. And sometimes that's just hard to gauge and hard to find, especially in large departments. Things move so fast. It's hard to really focus in on that. One of the things that Chief Kip and our chief of training and myself were trying to accomplish is in our rank academies to start bringing that back out. We felt like we were hiring people that had that when we hired them, but somehow it got somewhat suppressed. How do we reinvigorate and bring that out? And I think we started making a good bit of headway. Got a long way to go. We're not perfect, but getting people to realize what your values are and why it's important, even if you're fighting fire, to focus on those values. The caring of people and how we do business and caring for each other. For argument's sake, you could say that in our tactics and how we operate. But I want to go back. You made a comment about the weight as you move up. It's a pleasure and an opportunity and great fulfillment in some cases to be in those roles to help direct and guide and lead your department. But the pressure that goes at a company officer level and a battalion level and on up the chain to an assistant chief level, it's a total mindset or game changer. It's a lot of weight on your shoulders, and it's really difficult for people below to understand that. And a lot of times I would have to sit back and, you might get frustrated because something was going on, and you, oh my gosh, here we go again. But then I sat back and remember what it was like sitting in a fire station. We were doing the same thing then 20 years ago, so you got to kind of put it in perspective and have a way to try to get people to understand that the service part of fire service is so critical. And we have a tendency sometimes to think it's only about putting the wet stuff on the red stuff and not so much of taking care of our community. So I think that when you talk about compassion and caring for people, even how we talk to them sometimes, one of the first lessons I ever learned, I worked in a predominantly African-American community when I was a captain. I was a young captain, and I had an older driver who was an African-American firefighter or engineer. And he pulled me to the side one day. He said, what you just said to that lady was 110% right. But the way you said it was something that really, the message didn't hit because of how you presented it. And listening to him and sitting back as a young white male and sitting there saying, wow, I didn't realize that, totally changed my outlook and how I served that community. I had to change how I spoke to people, something as simple as just the tone of my voice. So I think that, we have to be open and listen and think about that. And in our community, we're there for one reason, and that's to serve them. No other way around it. And without them, we're non-existent. So I think that we need to really go back and think about some of those models. Chief Sonnenfeld from Irmo was in a chat a minute ago, and he was talking about the Bruno model, his community outlook. I don't know how many people even remember that book and that manual that everybody was into on customer service. He's exactly right. That's a part of our job that we haven't fostered enough and really grown and kept at the forefront of what we do. We are good at cutting roofs. We are great at large area searches. We're great at swift water rescue. All those kind of things we're good at, and across the state. But we seem to have lost a little bit of that.
And Jamie, like you and I have talked a lot, we've been talking about one of the communities we serve, and that's our public. But a huge, a very important, another community we serve is our members. And, all the principles we've been talking about of how we need to focus on of taking care of the little things and taking care of our exterior community, it's the same thing internal. And I think, when Joe was talking about that thing inside us, that reason we're here, and a lot of our firefighters, that gets covered up. I really believe that when we as leaders can find the focus to address those little things for our people, that's part of the tool of clearing away all the mess so that ember can burn again.
Got a good example of that. And Chief Helms is a friend and now a co-worker, so he won't mind me sharing this. If he does, he can kick me tomorrow. It's all right. I do a lot of things wrong. I screw up a lot of stuff, and I'm really good at screwing up stuff. Believe me, on a scale that's pretty incredible. But here's, you're a company officer and you want to do something. You're a chief officer, you want to do something. I'm going to give you an example of that, Chris, of what Jamie and I have talked about. Jamie, don't answer this. I'll answer it for you. What has been the biggest conversation that Jamie Helms and I've had in the past 2 weeks? What's been my concern for him? What did he do Monday while the rest of us were off? Yep, see, there's the head. I was waiting for it to turn so he wouldn't answer. And he was working, God bless him. But it was concern and care. Okay, and I'm not picking on Jamie. That may be a bad example. Jamie, I love you, sorry. But fundamentally, I knew what he was doing, and I knew why he was doing it. God bless him for doing it and everything. But it was a level of concern and caring. And Chris, this is kind of your point. As we share it out with our customers, we got to share it with our same people. We got to be willing to say to them and offer them thoughts and caring and compassion. And whether it's workaholics, like I'm fortunate to be surrounded by, or whether it's people that's having problems. And how do I know that? How do I express that? And maybe they got something they're bringing in the door with them, not something that happened here at work. That was not what Jamie Helms' problem was, before he started shooting me about that. But just how, as a leader, can I engage that individual and offer, it wasn't admonition as much as it is just simply caring, to be able to say, hey man, go take some time off. Why are you here? And he's, God bless him for being there, but it's important for us as leaders to engage and just constantly be thinking about what's happening to people around us, just like we're thinking about the people out, that lady we need to push up the hill in a wheelchair. I may have to push up wheelchairs around us every night.
Yeah, real quick, I want to go back to core values and the new groups coming in and what they have when we hire. How many ex-Marines do y'all know?
None.
None. You know, former Marines, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, former Marines. And they still carry the same core values that they were taught, right? So that's where we're dropping the ball. We're not teaching and demonstrating the core values, because they're taking all these 18-year-old guys from all over the country and bringing them right here to Paris Island and teaching them core values. Now, are they some knuckleheads? Yeah, but you're going to have that when you got those kind of numbers. And we're training them to be fighting machines. You don't let your pit bull out in public, but they have the core values and they're great hires for us. Because they have those core values, we need to do a better job of telling these young guys what our core values are. And this is how you're going to live. And anything outside of that is unacceptable. But what we do is we're kind of letting them, you know, kind of expand here and get away from the core values instead of dropping the hammer and say, no, sir, we don't do that. If somebody's going up the hill, and he didn't have to tell you, Chris, he just showed you, he demonstrated core values. And from then on, and still today, you never forgot it.
Right. He didn't say a word. And that was 24 years ago. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Joe, I'm getting warnings from folks off the screen. What I would like you to talk a little bit about is the 30-year anniversary of Meridian Fire. If you would could you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, and I'm sure that everybody on here is very knowledgeable about this. I don't carry any card of knowing all the incident statistics and issues, but yeah, 30 years ago tonight, as a matter of fact, in about 10 minutes from now, Philadelphia Fire Department got a call to 1 Meridian Place, fire on 28, I believe it was. 3 firefighters killed on the fire, Captain Holcomb, firefighter McAllister, and Chapel. And those individuals sacrificed their life at a fire where we tried to learn a number of lessons out of. A fundamental problem was the pressure restriction on a high-rise system that existed in the building, which limited the fire suppression capabilities. It was a long way for firefighters to get up there. You can read all the studies. There's 100 things. We talk about change a lot. I do know back in the late 80s, one of the things that we were all doing is we were transitioning into this new fad called automatic nozzles. And it was the big thing. You had to get rid of smoothbore. You had to everybody had to go to automatic nozzles. It's going to take the brain work out of pump ops. You just put it in gear and hell, the water squirts out and it looks pretty when it's coming out. And so everybody got on this fad, and those things were expensive as crap, but everybody was spending every last penny on getting automatic nozzles. Well, so was this department. And one of the problems that they had when they had the low pressure on the high rise system is that those automatic nozzles were set to operate their perfect pattern at 100 PSI, and you couldn't get it that high up and with those lower pressures that they were operating on. And the lesson to take away from me that I've tried to strive is honor those people, remember that. But more fundamentally, when it came to change and jumping on fads, I was always a little cautious, because latest and greatest sometimes didn't always reinvent the best, because after that, people started having high-rise packs on their units, and they went back to smoothbore nozzles on those high-rise packs. And instead of 1.5 inches at the time, they went to 2.5 on high-rise packs, on and on and on and on. Things were always there. But yeah, today it was interesting. Thank you for allowing me that moment, this being the 30-year anniversary of that fire, to be able to just kind of remember back lessons learned from that. And we all talk about change and about you know, how that affects and how we learn lessons from it. Meridian 1 was a big one.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that with the group. Also, I'd like to wish my main man, Tommy Norris, his birthday would have been yesterday. So those that know past President Tommy Norris, me and him came up to the chairs, meant a lot to me. But I just like to wish him a happy birthday in heaven. So I wanted to get that in. And so I want to thank everybody for being here. The topic that I'm gonna go ahead and prepare for next time is going to be change, because I want to talk about change and how we embrace it as a fire service. You know, I don't think the fire service is designed to be a social experiment. So it's hard for us to deal with everything that's changing outside of us and affecting us internally. But that's a topic that I think we can talk for probably 2 hours on next time. So we'll do our hour, but I just want y'all prepared to talk about change and kind of our evolution and where we're going. Yeah, thank y'all for being there tonight. I thought it was great conversation. I will tell you that I didn't get to hardly any of the material I wanted to get to.
Sorry.
But good stuff.
Maybe I could sit around here and do this for 2 or 3 hours. So, I mean, you get an extended version, call me back. It probably ain't worth listening to, but I could have fun doing it.
Well, we already talked about at the beginning that we want to do this at the conference and have folks in the audience and maybe we do it several nights, you know, and just do it in this kind of a hangout.
Yeah. Yeah. Really invite conversation from everybody there. That'd be great. That'd be what it's all about. It's about community.
Oh, and thank you everybody for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Now we sit awkwardly